Alrighty, folks, so many of the items that are in the speaker gifts are from local flavors, and you can see some of the companies that are on screen. I would now like to, I stand corrected, I said Pierre was next, but we have some celebrations to do. So, without further ado, I believe it is Warden Haley. Are you, I think you're up. My script is gone here.
Okay, as part of the program, it's my pleasure to introduce the 12th Annual Bill Thake Memorial Economic Development Leadership Award. During his lifetime, Bill Thake was known for his leadership and mentoring skills. His dedication to Westport and Leeds Grenville is legendary. Bill served an amazing 52 years on Westport Council and set a Canada-wide record as the longest-serving head of the municipality. He was Warden of the United Counties and unsurpassed 4 times. Those who knew Bill will remember his warmth and great sense of humor. And I personally learned a lot from Bill. And now I'd ask Marlene Thake, Bill's widow, to join me here. This award continues to honor Marlene's husband's memory while recognizing new leaders in our Leeds and Grenville communities. So Marlene is going to join us on stage with the county's acting CAO, Alison Tutak, and Economic Development Manager, Ann Weir, who will introduce our 4 outstanding nominees.
Good morning, everyone. Anne and I are pleased to tell you about our 4 impressive nominees. All have been supported by their respective municipal councils. Candidates have proven leadership skills, shown longevity in their community support, and made a positive impact on economic development. After each biography is read, would the nominee please come to the stage to receive their certificate and then return to their seat. Formal photos will be done during the lunch break of all the nominees and the winner. So, our first nominee, Joanne Sitzma of the Township of Athens. Joanne demonstrates an effortless ability to inspire and motivate others to her level of community participation. She is known for her giving nature and for 30 years has been a committed leader of numerous organizations and charities. Joanne continues to be involved with the Brockville and Area Food Bank. Her name is synonymous with local food drives. She has also been a volunteer, member or board member for Climb for Care, Girls Incorporated of Upper Canada, Career Services of Brockville, Brockville Power and Sales Squadron, the Care and Share Golf Committee, Feed Ontario, 100 Women Who Care 1,000 Islands, and Our Kenyan Kids. She was the recipient of the Brockville Citizen of the Year Award in 2021. Joanne was treasurer of the Auxiliary Volunteer Program at St. Lawrence Lodge and Scholarship Committee Chair for the Brockville Women's Network. Joanne and her late husband, Sid, created the Village Store in Athens and transformed it into an attractive downtown hub for residents and tourists. She was also the owner of dedicated shunting services for more than 24 years. Joanne is described as a champion for the entire region, making Leeds and Grenville a better place to live and do business. Congratulations, Joanne.
She gives directions very well. Thank you. Thank you, Joanne. Derek Olet, Township of Leeds in the Thousand Islands. Derek is a champion for economic development in the Sealy's Bay community. He retired to the area 10 years ago, but soon opened Ridgeway Confections, a superb, and I've tasted them, chocolate shop that has demonstrated a destination for residents and tourists alike. Derek is very proud of his products. At the same time, Derek is an energetic ambassador and promoter of the Township of Leeds in the Thousand Islands, including appearing in a promotional video series called Grow Your Business, Love Your Lifestyle. Derek's success has been a model to other entrepreneurs and demonstrates how a small business can find creative ways to give back to the community. Derek and his wife, Cindy Healy, launched the annual Easter egg hunt to entice residents and families to explore area parks, the main street, and other community gems. Both triathletes, I'm impressed very much. They also created and are the driving force behind an annual Truffle Shuffle, 5K walk run now in its 8th year. All proceeds are donated to the local food bank. Derek provides audio-visual support to area residents and association SBRA, Sealy's Bay. For the events, Derek's nomination is supported by the Leeds and the Thousand Islands Council and Economic Development Committee. Congratulations, Derek. There he is.
Get the flash off of it. Yeah. Thank you. No, please.
And our third nominee is Dermot O'Farrell of the municipality of North Grenville. Dermot is a community leader who is passionate about North Grenville. He was awarded the North Grenville Chamber of Commerce Citizen of the Year Award in 2011 and the Harry Spratt Ambassador of the Year in 2017. Dermot is president and managing partner of O'Farrell Financial Services Incorporated, a company he and his wife, Donna Lee, founded in 1997. Dermot has been an active volunteer and board member with many local organizations and charities for more than 25 years. He was a member of the North Grenville Chamber of Commerce, Grenville Community Futures Development Corporation, and the Economic Development Advisory Committee. Dermot was president of the Kemptville District Hospital Foundation, sat on the board of directors for the Ryan's Well Foundation, and was Grand Knight of the Knights of Columbus Kemptville chapter. He founded the annual Columbus Sweetheart Brunch, now in its 20th year. Dermot was appointed to the Kemptville Campus Board of Directors last year and is currently chair. Most recently, he served as chair of the International Plowing Match and Rural Expo 2022 Local Exhibitors Committee. His nomination is supported by North Grenville's Council and Community and Economic Development Advisory Committee. Congratulations, Dermot, on your nomination.
Our next nominee is Susan Warren, known to many as Sue, from the township of Rideau Lakes. Sue works tirelessly to make the rich history and genealogy of Rideau Lakes accessible to everyone interested in ancestry. For more than 42 years, Sue has volunteered her time protecting archives while promoting the township's historical significance through books and films. She is also a popular speaker and reenactor. Sue is an accomplished author and recent retired librarian, who has been at the forefront of digitalization movement to ensure visitors and future generations can learn more about the rich history of Rideau Lakes and the Rideau Canal region. The more information online about the place, the more likely people are to visit it. As chair of the Rideau Lakes Municipal Heritage Advisory Committee, Sue was instrumental in helping reach larger audiences via a series of documentary films on the Rideau Canal's construction and intriguing history. She's an active member of the Chaffee's Lock and Area Heritage Society, Elgin and Area Elgin Society, Heritage Society, Friends of the Rideau and the Leeds and Grenville branch, Ontario Genealogy Society. Sue is passionate about bringing visitors to the region to explore the history of Rideau Lakes. Her nomination is supported by Rideau Lakes Township Council. Congratulations on your nomination, Sue.
And just to share with you with respect to the winners over the past 2 years, in 2020, Janet Campbell from Merrickville-Wolford and Wendy Merkley from Leeds and Thousand Islands. And in 2021, we had Ken Watson from Rideau Lakes and Kathy Shepard from North Grenville. I would like to call upon Warden Haley to announce this year's recipient.
Answer the folders on the end. There's no drum roll yet. There we go. And the winner of the 2022 Bill Thake Memorial Economic Development Leadership Award is Susan Warren and Dermot O'Farrell.
You get to give it. Testing. Okay. Everyone can hear me. I just would like to thank very much the Township of Rideau Lakes for the nomination, and certainly Bob for driving me up here and bearing with me for many, many, many years. The only other thing I have to say is that we have an amazing history, including the Rideau Lakes, of course, and the Rideau Canal in Leeds and Grenville. And I think everything we can do to promote it, to bring more visitors in, including visitors that are looking for their family history, looking to see how the locks work. We've got a real treasure that sometimes I don't think we value as much as we should. And that's, I think, all I'm going to say. And thank you again.
I was taught early to stand right up to the mic, but I got a big voice anyway. First off, I'm very humbled to accept this award, and I'm very, very grateful. I want to thank the people who organized today's events, and we're the municipality of North Grenville, Leeds, Grenville. I also want to thank Marlene for being part of what your husband did for all those years to create this award. It's very prestigious. I also want to thank Allison for your kind words, and I also want to thank Warden Haley. I will say this, I'm a big fan of the municipality of North Grenville. I'm a big fan of our current council and current mayor and of the community in general. They say that it takes a community to build an individual, and in my case, it certainly took that. So first off, I want to thank my wife, who's not here because we have a home in the south and we had just left when we found out about this, but she's listening right now. And to my daughters, who I have to say are entrepreneurs here in North Grenville because of North Grenville, because without North Grenville, you know, I would not have been in business if it wouldn't have been as inviting as it has been over these last 25 years. And so my girls, one's in energy healing and one is entrepreneurial to the end in building her own life through business. And I also want to thank all the partners at O'Farrell Financial who have been a big reason why I'm up here today. I would not be able to do the work in the community if I didn't have the full support of all the people that are around me. So I would say that you're looking at almost the finished version of who I am up here today. But the starting picture was not as pretty as maybe what you're looking at today. Maybe a little lighter, but not as pretty. So life is a journey. I said outside that we have an incredible benefit here in Leeds, Grenville. We have an incredible federal minister. We have an incredible MP. We have an incredible MPP who's just done amazing things for our area, and we have an incredible mayor in North Grenville, and I'm sure the rest of you would agree with that. So as I take this today, I want to thank congratulate my fellow nominees who were nominated here today, Joanna Sitzma, Derek Willett, and of course Susan up here. I want to congratulate you on this award. There's much to do, and it's a lot of fun doing it. So thank you from the bottom of my heart. It means very much to me to get this. It's very prestigious, and all thanks to the great work that Bill Thake did over all those years. Thank you.
So congratulations to all the nominees, and I'll pass it back to Ann for the rest of the program.
Wow, what amazing individuals. So proud to have so many individuals in this room and the nominees and winners today. Fantastic. What amazing people we have in this region. So congratulations. For our next speaker, we didn't know if the schedule and today's agenda would align. Hence why we have 2 keynote speakers in the morning. So I'm thrilled that we were able to make it happen. The Business Support Working Group that I mentioned earlier, they specifically asked for Pierre to come back and speak at the summit, and this is one of their key requests. So, Pierre, if you can provide us a little update on the economic outlook. I'm keeping my fingers crossed here. Please join me on the stage, and I know you like to walk, so welcome Pierre Cléroux from BDC.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Anne, for the introduction. Somebody stole the clicker. Oh, okay. Okay, thank you. No, thank you so much. Good morning, everybody. The minister said it this morning, the economy is slowing down, and he's right. And he also said that the next year or so is going to be quite uncertain, and he's also right. So what I'm going to do in the next 20 minutes, I'm going to try to explain what's going on. So what happened in the last 2 years to create this inflation, and what does it mean for the next 12 months? So first, I'm going to start with the economic outlook. Second, I'm going to focus on Ontario. And finally, a last part that I want to talk about is the labor shortages, because some people made the comment this morning, and it's actually probably the most important issue we have in Canada, probably for the next 5 years. So I want to explain why we have this issue and why, unfortunately, it's not going to go away and what we should do about it. So first, let's start with the Canadian economy. The economy is slowing down. The graph that you see is the GDP, or the economic level activities per quarter. The potential growth for Canada is 2%. If we look at the graph, over the last few quarters, our growth has been much higher than 2%. Just the last quarter, the third quarter, we are starting to see a slowdown. So we're not in recession, actually, in Canada, in Ontario. I'm going to show you Ontario a bit later. The growth is still positive. And it reflects in the unemployment rate. The unemployment rate in Canada is 5.2%. This is lower than before the pandemic. And this is actually one of the lowest unemployment rates in the last 50 years. So that's one of the reasons why there's a shortage of labor. It's because there's more jobs than actually people in Canada. We have been performing very well. But there's also another factor, aging population. I'm going to keep that for the end. But what happened? Why has the economy has been performing so well over the last 2 years? Well, there's 3 reasons. First, consumption has been really increasing. Government programs have helped Canadians to go through the pandemic. The job market is good. There's more jobs today than before, and salaries have been increasing. So people have been spending money, which is stimulating the economy. There was another factor. Commodity prices has been increasing very significantly. The world economy recovered, so there was a stronger demand, and also the war in Ukraine. Ukraine is producing a lot of commodities, so because of the war, the price of wheat, the price of oil, natural gas is increasing. And that actually benefiting Canada, because when these prices are going up, we produce, as you know, a lot of commodities in Canada. I was in Timmins yesterday. I could see the positive impact of increased commodities on lumber, but also on minerals. There's a lot of mining projects because of the new technology that we're using, but also because of the war in Ukraine. Finally, businesses has been investing. Business investment, as you can see from the graph, have been increasing every quarter since the middle of 2020. So consumers have been spending more. Businesses have been investing more. The war in Ukraine have created higher commodity prices. All this put together meant that the Canadian economy has been performing very well. The downside is this has provoked an increase in price. The inflation rate went up to 8.1% in June. It's going down a little bit. It's at 6.9 now. But as you can see from the graph, this kind of inflation is quite new for Canada. It's much higher than what we used to see in Canada, around 2%. So that was a perfect storm. The Canadian economy has been performing well, so the demand is strong. Also, the war in Ukraine has increased prices, and supply chain issues around the world has also put pressure on price. So this is where we are now. The economy has been performing well for 2 years, but inflation is high. And like the minister said, inflation is actually bad. Inflation is negative for people, especially for low-income people. When the price of food is increasing, everybody is affected, but especially people with low income. Also, it's bad for businesses because it's increasing costs. Not every business is able to pass these costs to consumers, depending on your business model, your sector, the size of your business. And it creates a lot of uncertainty. So inflation, everybody agrees that something should be done about it, and that's exactly what the Bank of Canada is doing now. The Bank of Canada is increasing interest rate to slow down the economy to put inflation down. So far, they have been increasing interest rate 6 times in the last 7 months. The prime rate now is at 3.75. Unfortunately, this is not going to be enough because inflation is not going down quickly. It's actually last month, the last figure we have, it's 6.9, just like in September. So the Bank of Canada will have to increase interest rate more. So this is the first thing. For the next 12 months, you should expect that interest rate will keep increasing. Until which level? Well, that's not clear. That's not sure. It depends how inflation is going to go down. Our forecast is 4.5%, but the Bank of Canada might need to go higher than that, depending if inflation is going down. So what happened when you increase interest rate? Well, some sectors of the economy is slowing down. The first one is the real estate sector. The volume of sales in Canada has really declined. It's now below 2019. So that's a direct result of increasing interest rate. Prices have been going down as well by 18% in Canada. But if you look at the graph, you can see that prices are still much higher today than before the pandemic. So this sector is not crashing. It's just actually going back to normal. In the last 2 years, prices in Canada has increased by 40%. That was not normal. Now we're going back to a kind of a normal situation. You can look at the graph at the end, you can see that prices are a bit more stable. So they went down and they are pretty much stable now. Another sector that is slowing down is retail. As Canadians are paying more for their mortgages, their mortgage payment, well, they have to cut somewhere, and retail is one of the sectors that is affected. Because every month, there's half of Canadians who have a variable rate on their mortgages. So each time you increase interest rate, well, these people are affected. They don't have the same amount of money in their pocket. So we don't believe that retail is going to collapse. The reason is there's still money in the system. This is the savings that Canadians have in their bank account. So if you look at the beginning of the graph, in 2019, Canadians had $26 billion in their bank account. It went up to $200 billion during the pandemic. Government program helped people, but also remember, there was a lot of restriction on the economy. We couldn't travel, couldn't go to restaurants. So that was a great time to save, and that's what Canadians did. But over the last 2 years, as inflation is increasing, as interest rate is increasing, the amount of savings has been going down. People have been spending money. But we still have about $94 billion in savings. So this is a great shock absorber for the impact of interest rate and also inflation. So yes, retail is slowing down, but it's not going to collapse because of that. In terms of businesses, business investment intention are also slowing down as the economy is slowing down and the demand for their products and services is slowing down as well. It's still positive. Businesses are still investing, but they are not going to increase investment as much as they did over the last 2 years. So if I try to summarize all this, so far, the economy has been performing very well. Everything was green, except the real estate market, who already started to slow down. For the next 12 months, We're starting to see some red flags. Consumption of goods is slowing down. Business investment is not going to be the same. The real estate market is going to stay soft. So what does it mean? Are we going into a recession? Well, not necessarily. We don't believe we're going into a recession. Yes, the economy is going to slow down. Our forecast is actually the growth is going to be close to zero for 2023 as the economy is adjusting to this interest rate increase. But if you look at the graph, you can see that even zero growth is quite a different scenario than the last 2 years. In 2021, the Canadian economy grew by 4.6%. This year, the year is not over, but growth is going to be well over 3%. So in 2023, with a flat economy, with zero growth, businesses are going to feel it. The demand for products and services is not going to be the same. It's not to increase the same way that it did over the last 2 years. So we're not expecting a recession, but a major slowdown in the economy with growth that will be close to zero. Having said that, the risk of a recession is definitely increasing. There's two risks that we are following. The first one is the Bank of Canada could increase interest rate too much, and that could create a recession. As you can understand, it's a tough strategy. You're increasing interest rate to slow down the economy without creating a recession, to slow down inflation. So this is not a perfect science, as you can imagine. So the Bank of Canada can go too far. Second risk that we're following is coming from the US. The US economy is in the same scenario than we are. The economy has been performing very well. The unemployment rate is low, 3.7%. But interest rates are increasing very rapidly in the US. That could lead to a recession, and by rebound, will be affected here. So some economists have this mild recession scenario. And I put the two scenarios on the same graph to show you that the difference between slow growth or mild recession is actually very small. Nobody's talking about a major recession like in 2020, where we lost 3 million jobs in Canada, or in the financial crisis like in 2008. So yes, the economy is slowing down. It will be close to zero in the next 12 months. We might have a quarter that is positive, a quarter that is negative, but overall, the economy is going to be close to zero growth. I want to, one final point on this graph. The situation we are in is quite different than the two last recessions. The two last recessions came from outside Canada. 2008, financial crisis in the US that created a world recession, including in Canada. 2020, well, you all remember what happened. We had a virus coming from outside, and that forced our governments to put the economy on pause to protect our healthcare system. This time around, we controlled the slowdown. The Bank of Canada wants to slow down the economy to reduce inflation, but they control interest rate. If the economy is slowing down too much, while they can reverse their strategy. They can slow down the increase of interest rate. They can even put interest rate down. So we have much more control of the situation now than we did in 2008 and 2020. So there's more reason to be optimistic. So Ontario now, well, the Ontario economy has been performing very well over the last 2 years. Growth this year is going to be about 3.5%. If we look by quarter, you can see that the Ontario economy is still growing. Last quarter, the last data we have is still positive. It's slowing down, but it's still positive. When we look at the level of job, we can see that we're starting to see that the number of jobs is slightly going down. Basically, these two sectors where the number of jobs is going down, retail and also construction, which is related to real estate. Beside that, the rest of the economy is still growing. But it's a sign that the economy is slowing down. So first, if we look at the real estate markets, it's the same situation for Canada. The volume of sales has really been declining as interest rate is increasing. Prices has been going down as well. Again, prices are much more elevated now than before the pandemic, but there was a correction in the last few months as interest rates are increasing. And one of the reasons why we see a correction is because the level of mortgage payment is a bit higher in Ontario than in the average in Canada. This is actually in yellow, the average payment for people in Ontario in terms of mortgages compared to in dark blue for Canada. The housing prices are higher in Ontario, so people pay more mortgages. But when you increase interest rates, you have a bigger impact. So we believe that the impact on retail is going to be a little bit stronger. Also, if you look at this graph, you can really see the impact of interest rate. If you look at the last 2 quarters, both for Canada and Ontario, you can see that the average mortgage payment has been increasing in the second quarter, and we don't even have the third quarter. So you see the impact of increasing interest rate on people. People have to pay more. You withdraw money from the economy. People won't have the same amount of money to spend, and that's the reason why retail sales has been declining by 7% in Ontario. And this is probably just the beginning. We should expect that retail will continue to go down as interest rates are increasing. But there's a number of factors that are going to continue to support the growth of the Ontario economy as real estate and retail is slowing down. The first one is the unemployment rate is still very low. There's still a very high level of jobs in the province. Second one is the amount of savings is still quite significant. So people still have a buffer to face this interest rate increase and also inflation. So we are about $5 billion of savings, much higher than before the pandemic. Of course, savings has been going down over the last 2 years. Another good news is that our export has been increasing. So our level of export is much higher today than before the pandemic, which is supporting the manufacturing sector in the province. So we can see manufacturing sales has been increasing over the last 2 years and is still quite high. Finally, business investment are more elevated now than before the pandemic. So there's a number of factors that is going to support the growth as some sectors are more affected by interest rate increase. So our forecast for the province is close to Canada. It's about 0.6% growth. Basically, growth is going to be close to zero in the province for 2023. But again, we're not expecting a recession. Just like in Canada, we believe that the economy is able to absorb this interest rate increase. So the final point I want to make is about labor shortages. I know it's a big issue for you. It's a big issue across the country. And the main reason for that is we have an aging population. 19% of people in Ontario are over 65. In Canada, the number is exactly the same. This is a huge increase compared to only 20 years ago, where we had only 12% of our people who were over 65. So what happened when you get close to 65? Well, you retire, and that's exactly what's happening now. Thousands of baby boomers are leaving the job market to retire. In the last 12 months, 400,000 Canadians retired. So this is a record. We never saw that in Canada. This number 20 years ago was below 100,000. So this is the reason why we have so much trouble to hire people, because the baby boomers, there was a lot of them, they are leaving the job market to retire. Unfortunately, this is not the end of it. And if you are in business, the number you want to remember is this one. 21% of Ontario workers are over 55 today. So that means that in the next 10 years, these people are going to retire. I was sitting in Timmins beside a client in the forestry industry, and he told me when I showed this slide that in the forestry industry is about 70% who are over 55. So some industry are going to be really affected by this aging population. And when we look at the next generation, people who are below 25, you can see the proportion is much lower than older. 20 years ago, look at the beginning of the graph. 20 years ago, the proportion of younger workers was higher than older workers. Now it's the opposite. So this is the issue, the challenge we have as a country. The numbers for every province is similar. It varies between 20 and 22%. So in every part of the country, we have exactly the same challenge. So immigration is a key. There's no doubt about that. But as businesses, we don't have a control on immigration. What we have control on is what we can do as a business. We did a research at BDC. We look at more than 2,000 companies across the country. We look at how they are facing this issue and also at their success. Best strategy by far is investing in technology and automation. I know the session after me is exactly on technology. This is really the key. Technology doesn't replace people, but it does replace tasks. And in many sectors, in every sector of the economy, you can replace some tasks inside your business by technology. You can use a software to send your invoice. In the manufacturing sector, automation has a great potential. So this is the future for us, because for the next 5 to 10 years, we're going to have a shortage of labor, and the cost of labor will be increasing. If you're in business, you know that over the last 2 years, salaries have been increasing. This is not the end of it, because even if the economy is slowing down, it's going to be difficult to recruit people. So you have to think about how you're going to grow your business in the next 5 years in this new context, in this new normal. So in conclusion, the economy is slowing down. There's no doubt about that. This is actually what the Bank of Canada wants to see. They want to see the economy to slow down to reduce inflation. So this is exactly what's happening now. So you should expect in the next 12 months, interest rates will keep increase. We'll see the economy to slow down. We are not expecting a recession. We believe that the economy can absorb this interest rate increase. But for the next 12 months, the economy is going to be bumpy, a lot of uncertainty, and the growth is not going to be the same as the one you have seen over the last 2 years. But we should be okay. We should avoid a recession. I'm going to stop here, and we'll take some questions, and we'll be happy to take your questions.
Thank you. Oh, which one I got? There we go. Thank you, Pierre. Okay, so I've got a couple of mics that can go out to the audience. And okay, I'll go over here because that's the way of least resistance to start, and I'll go to the other way.
So you didn't talk about the war in Ukraine, and just wondered how you feel that's going to affect things going forward?
The war in Ukraine is having a great impact on Europe, and actually most European countries will be in recession this year. They have the same situation in here, if interest rates are increasing, but really what hurt them is the energy crisis. The war in Ukraine is creating an energy shortage. I'll give you an example that I find extraordinary. Last week, I was talking to my equivalent, the chief economist of the BPI France bank, which is a similar bank than we are. And he said it was freezing because the new legislation in France is they force people to limit the heat at 19 degrees. So he's working in a building at 19 degrees because of the shortage of energy. So this is a very concrete, very real example of what's happening. So unfortunately, European countries are going to be in recession because of that. In Canada, we are far away. So not only we're not affected by that, and we don't have any energy problem because we produce a lot of energy, on top of it, we benefit from the war because the war is creating an increase in commodity prices. So when the price of wheat is increasing, we benefit from it. When the price of oil is increasing, we benefit from it. So actually, Canada has been benefiting from this war. It's very unfortunate to say that, but that's the context. We produce about the same commodities than Ukraine and Russia. So this is, from an unfortunate situation, we are benefiting because we produce a lot of commodities.
I think it's on. There it is. If the major banks are collecting more money from Canadians in the form of interest payments on their mortgages, where does that money go in the economy? Do you understand what I mean? Yeah.
I do understand. But actually, you know, the banks are making profit on the margin. So you know, they also pay more on the international market to get some money. So, you know, the banks are borrowing money on, you know, on the international market, and they lend it to Canadians. So they make money on the difference. When interest rates are increasing, they are paying more. So that's where the money is going. They are paying more for their loans, and they are charging more. Right now, the situation is not actually benefiting the banks because the level of lending is actually slowing down. As interest rate is increasing, consumers have started to request less mortgages and also less loans. So this is not a good situation for the banks. They prefer when the interest rate is lower and people are, you know, demanding more mortgages. But they're still, don't get me wrong, they're still okay. But but it's not you know, that's not the best situation for them.
Good morning, Pierre. My name is Ahmad Kadra. I am representing the Professional Engineering of Ontario in this room. And my question related to the labor shortages. We have known the boomer babies for the past 1 million years, and all of a sudden now it is affecting our life. Why the Canadian government start to deal with that problem now, importing 1.5 million new immigrants after the fact? What's going on here?
Well, there's a number of reasons. And one of the reasons is, I agree with you, we didn't take our aging population serious enough. So immigration has always been strong in Canada, but we should have accelerated before. I agree with that. But at the same time, what happened really is the pandemic. During the pandemic, the level of immigration dropped by half because of the restriction. So we kind of missed 2 years of immigration. At the same time, the economy has been booming. So the combination of the two, the reality is there's 1 million vacant jobs in Canada right now. The minister said almost 400,000 for Ontario. Canada is 1 million. So this is the result of the pandemic as much as the result of our aging population.
Thank you very much for that extremely informative briefing. John Beddoes, I'm the mayor of Gananoque. To what degree is housing affordability a negative factor in labor mobility in Ontario? We have a firm in Gananoque called Cardinal Health, US multinational. They manufacture medical devices. They worked all the way through COVID because when you need a pacemaker, you need a pacemaker. Right now, they're hiring. They're offering $18 an hour with full benefits, medical and dental, pension, all of it. But there's nowhere to live in Gananoque if your gross salary is $36,000 a year, or $36K a year, which is what you earn at 40 hours a week, 50 weeks per year. So how much of a negative factor on labor supply where it's needed is housing affordability? Thank you.
I don't have the answer, but definitely it's a factor right now. We are seeing that not only we have a shortage of labor, but we have a shortage of houses in Canada, in Ontario, everywhere. We haven't built enough. The good news is despite the fact that real estate is slowing down, the housing starts in Ontario is still increasing. I understand that builders are focusing on rental because the interest rates are increasing, so people are not buying as much. But rental is popular. So we need more of everything in housing. There's a number of reasons why we have a shortage of supply of housing. The immigration has been strong. There's a lot of regulations in many municipalities that make it difficult to build. We have to look at this. We also have to make sure that we create the proper environment for builders, because a lot of builders are slowing down their housing start because they find that the cost of everything is too high for them. So they are not able to afford to build houses. So this is a very complex issue. Unfortunately, I don't have the magic answer, but that's something we really have to look at because it's really creating a problem everywhere. It's everywhere we have a shortage of houses. In Canada. So this is really a problem for the country.
The shortage is focused at the bottom end of the market, particularly for purchase to own. And part of the problem
But it's not easy, as you can imagine. Salaries are increasing. The cost of materials has been very high over the last 2 years. So you can understand that builders are focusing on the high end. So that's why I say the solution is very complicated. Governments will have to look at this to see how they can help to build more housing, because the cost has been increasing so much that they are focusing, like you said, on the high end. I agree. I agree.
Hi. So my question is specific to North America, but involves all of the economy, and you just talked about housing prices going up, and energy is such a big part of that. I think the whole world knows that, you know, there's global warming, there's climate change, and that we have to go to a greener way to live over time. But why the flick of a switch, and especially with the war in Ukraine, and why the flick of a switch to go so green so fast and shut down the reserves that we have in North America to a great extent? And we only have to look back 3 years ago to the price of fuel to see that. Why? What are we, who maybe don't understand the answer to this complex question, missing on the logic of governments not to still use oil and gas to our advantage, keeping in mind that we're shifting to green, but not overnight, maybe over 10 or 15 or 20 years? Why this insanity in my mind? Because oil goes into so many products. You mentioned them. You've been mentioning them all morning.
Yeah. I agree with you. The challenge we have is in many people's mind, we switch to green energy, but the problem is we don't have enough green energy. 80% of the world energy has a carbon footprint, like oil and gas. So when we say we want to switch from that, I agree, and I think everybody agree, but we need the green energy to replace it. So what's happening right now is investment in oil has been really declining because of this switch that we are doing. But at the same time, we don't have the green energy to replace it. So that's the reason why the price of oil is so high. I'll give you two numbers. In 1914, we invested in Canada $70 billion in oil. This year, we'll be investing less than 10. Because over that period of time, nobody wants to invest in oil anymore. And this is not only in Canada, it's around the world. So the demand for oil around the world is increasing faster than the supply. So like I said, the goal is good. We want to move away from oil, but we still don't have the other energy that is going to replace oil. So in the meantime, if you don't increase your supply and the demand is increasing, what happened with the price? Well, the price is going up. And that's exactly what is happening now. So you should expect that the oil price, the price at the pump, is going to stay high because the supply is not increasing anymore. So we need really to develop those alternative energy. And like you said, I totally agree with you. We switch too fast. You know, in order to move to another green energy, you have to have it. So I agree we have to develop it. But right now, our underinvestment in oil is hurting us, basically.
Next, we've got Darren, and then actually there was someone, yep, do you want to put your hand up right at the far end? Yes, over there. And then we're coming back to Mitch and then Mike, okay? So Darren first.
Pierre, I'm just curious, obviously housing's been discussed and I'm happy to hear that, but I think there's another sector that hasn't really been discussed today, and that's food and the impact of inflation on food prices. Now, I know everybody spends more at the grocery store these days. Can you talk about how much you see as the pursuit of corporate profit and how much that's impacting inflation and pricing on food?
The main reason why food has been increasing so much is because of the pandemic. There was disruption in the supply chain around the world, also the war in Ukraine. The war in Ukraine made the price of wheat, for example, really increasing and very unstable. The price of wheat went down, but because like 3 weeks ago, Mr. Putin said he's going to shop wheat shipment from Ukraine, well, the price went up. This morning, Russia announced that they are going to reopen the shipment for the next 4 months. So this instability is increasing prices because you have wheat everywhere. So that's the first reason. In terms of the corporate profit, I think there's some element to it, but I don't think it's what is really the crucial factor. The crucial factor is the fact that the supply around the world has been disrupted first before the pandemic and because of the war. And that should go back to normal at one point. The war is not over, but the impact of the war might, be better. But that's, I would say, the most important factor. Are some businesses benefiting from that? Maybe. But there's a lot of competition in the food industry. So the most determined factor is really what's happening in the supply, on the supply side.
But don't you find that with the recording of record profits by all of the major grocery retailers, don't you find that a little bit odd in timing then?
I think they have some of them, and I want to, because I don't, I haven't looked at their profit very closely, but obviously some of them have benefited from that. They took advantage of the fluctuation. But again, they were able to do it just because the price of everything went up because of the war and because of the problem of supply during the pandemic.
Pierre, thank you for the presentation. It was riveting, I'm sure, for everybody in the room. But you're also an investment bank, and I'm curious, when you present that and discuss that behind the closed doors of BDC from an investment perspective, what do you see in the near term in terms of priority investments for the Crown Corporation? What do you see 5 years from now, perhaps? And what relevance can you see that for us here in Leeds, Grenville, who ourselves want to attract investment here? Thank you.
Very good question, a complex one. The short term, we're preparing for the slowdown. We're preparing to help businesses during the slowdown. That's our mandate at BDC. During the good time and the bad time, we want to support small and mid-sized businesses across the country. We did in 2008. We did in 2014 when the oil price went down and the west part of the country needed help. And we did it in 2020. In 2020, at the beginning of the pandemic, we doubled our number of loans because a lot of businesses needed this. And I will share this anecdote that I find very interesting. We had so many requests that our account manager couldn't do it. So at the bank, they asked everybody that was free, meaning who could spare some time, help them to do loans. So on my team, I had economists who were doing loans. So what they did, because you cannot do loans like tomorrow morning, so they split the work. So I remember this guy, who was an economist for me, he had to call people who were requesting a loan to see exactly what they needed. That's the first time in his life that he had direct contact with clients. So that's what we did in 2020. We put everybody in the machine ready for that. So that's exactly what we do now. In the short term, we're preparing for a slowdown. We're not expecting a big recession, but we want to be ready. So that's basically what we are doing now. In the 5-year horizon, we're doing two things. We want to focus more on smaller businesses because we believe there's still a market gap in terms of financing. We also want to focus on the green energy. We want to help Canadian businesses to make this transition from using the carbon footprint to more green energy. For example, we want to help entrepreneurs who have a building to reduce their need for the carbon energy to more electricity. So we want the next 5 years for us, this is where the focus is going to be. We're going to continue to do what we do, but we're going to do much more to help businesses to reduce their carbon footprint.
Good morning, Mr. Cléroux. I'm Tara from the United Counties of Stormont-Dundas, Glengarry. Fascinating presentation, and I think one of the questions that I have is just, In your 0.6% your economic projection, do you feel that there's going to be haves and have-nots in that list? Will rural Ontario be more adversely affected than metropolitan areas?
Probably not. The sectors that are more affected by its retail, especially on the goods side, not so much on service side, construction. The manufacturing sector is not affected yet, but it could be affected if there's a slowdown in the US economy because we export a lot. Sectors that are less affected are mining. The demand for mining will continue to be very strong, which is, to your point, rural area. Agriculture is going to remain strong. Strong demand for agriculture in Canada, coming from inside but outside the country. And food transformation. It's a sector that is growing in Canada. We never talk about food processing, but it's actually the second largest manufacturing sector in the country, and it's a sector that is very stable because there's a strong demand for it. So this sector is not going to be affected. So I wouldn't say that rural economy is going to be less affected. I think it will be less affected than big center. Like right now, the economy has been performing very well. But downtown Toronto is still suffering because a lot of people are still working from home. So a lot of small business in the service sector that used to see 1 million people coming to the downtown area, well, now it's a fraction of that. So the recovery has not been as strong or as good for downtown Toronto than the rest of the economy. So for the slowdown, I'm more confident for the rural area than for the big cities.
Over here.
Good morning, Pierre. Bill Passy. Thanks so much. It was a very interesting review you did this morning. I've got two questions embedded in this comment. So when I look at the central banks, and you didn't spend a lot of time talking central banks, they really got inflation wrong. They called inflation transitory, and we're managing inflation the old-fashioned way, looking in the rearview mirror to see what happened 2 quarters ago, and there'll be revisions, and so likely will dip below zero. So two questions. One, why do you think the central banks were so wrong? And what lessons have they learned to lead going forward so we don't see a significant economic downturn a year from now? Hopefully when you're here again talking to us, we're in a different situation.
Yeah. Two good questions. The first one is the biggest reason is the war in Ukraine. Nobody expected that we will have a war, and the impact is great because Ukraine and Russia produce a lot of commodities. So the price of wheat increased by almost 100% at the beginning of the war. The price of oil increased. So when you increase these base commodities, you have an impact on inflation. So that's one of the reasons. Second reason is the recovery has been very strong and very fast, stronger than economists expected. So I think the central banks were surprised by that. And the third reason, I remember in January, they were thinking, because we talked to the Bank of Canada very often, they were going to increase interest rate in January, but Omicron came. And a lot of province, Ontario and Quebec, especially Quebec, they make restriction on the economy. That slowed down the economy. So they didn't increase interest rate in January because central Canada was under restriction in January. So they waited until March. In retrospect, because it was hard for them to increase interest rate while you have restriction on the economy. So I'm not the one to excuse them, but there's good reasons why they waited so long. And really what changes the game is the war. Nobody were expecting the war, and the war had a really big impact on costs, on prices. I can tell you they try everything to not make the same mistake. The mistake now is not to increase interest rate too much. And we met the governor of the bank 2 weeks ago, and they do everything they can, but it's very hard for them. The game is to increase interest rate to reduce inflation without creating a recession. So that's a tough game to follow, especially that inflation is not going down as quickly as they would like to. There was a joke inside my team last month. the Canadian economy created 100,000 jobs. And people said, well, this is a very bad news. It should be a good news. But in the context you want to reduce inflation, this is not a good news. Salaries in October, year over year, increased by 5.6%. This is way too much. If you want to reduce inflation, you cannot have salaries increasing by more than 5%. So that's the challenge they have. So it means they will have to increase interest rate more to put inflation down. So they do, I trust them. I have fully, I believe they are smart people, but they don't control everything. They don't control the outside world of Canada. So are they going to make the same mistake going too far? I don't think so. But, it's not a perfect science. So that's the reason why it's difficult. And what is different now is the job market is very tight because of the aging population. So normally when you increase interest rate, the economy is slowing down, you should see more job loss. But there's so many vacant jobs that salaries are still increasing. So that's not helping their strategy.
Hello, Mike Dwyer, Township of Rideau Lakes, the Chief Administrative Officer. Our community is facing a major investment decision and a big facility for us anyways. And a lot of, I think, we've been conditioned to cheap money. We borrowed money 2 years ago at 1.2%, and now folks see it at 4.5 or 5, and they really get scared. But to me, when I look at it over a 20 or 30-year horizon, that's either below or at the average. So I think we've become conditioned to cheap money, and that's going to make people shy from making major investments, which is a concern. So that I can quote you for my counsel, what's your outlook in terms of the 2 to 5 year interest rate? Do mortgage rates and the impact on people and the U.S. sovereign debt actually put a cap on interest rates around 5%? Are we going to see them grow even further?
Yeah, very good question. I feel for you. Actually, you're perfectly right when you're saying that long-term investment always pays off, and it's always true. If you look in history, it's true for a house. It's even more true for infrastructure. There's all kind of example that what sounds very expensive now, 25 years from now, is going to be a great investment. Interest rates are increasing. They will increase probably to the prime rate, I mean, to 4.5 to 5%. When inflation is down, interest rate will go down. And it will go down to what we call a neutral rate, an interest rate that doesn't have a positive or negative impact on the economy. So remember, at the beginning of the pandemic, interest rate went almost to zero. That was to stimulate the economy. Now, they are increasing at 5 or 4.5 to slow down. In Canada, the neutral rate is 2.5. So in the next 2 years, interest rate should go back to 2.5. And that will be our interest rate for a while until there's either too much inflation or a recession. So, but you should in long-term investment, you should think about that interest rate will be close to 2.5 in the long-term horizon.
Thank you very much, Pierre, for a wonderful speak. I was saying to Dermot, I said, I love hearing you speak. You're so concise and informative. So thank you for that today.
Thank you. Oh, thank you. Thank you.
Wealth of knowledge. I was saying to Dermot, I heard you speak a couple of years ago. I still use your snippets of information. We're in finance and investment. And I guess just to dovetail on the interest rate, one thing that in our day-to-day speak with clients, people are worried, like as soon as you see the interest rates go up 6 times, 4% in the last 4 or 5 months, they think of 40 years ago when they were at 18%. When's this going to stop? And you try to have a conversation, because one thing you haven't really touched on is government debt. So the bonds, we've never seen the bond yields go down 18%. Yeah. So that is really what you're just talking about, that neutral rate of what's stopping that runaway interest rate. So maybe just comment on the U.S. debt, the Canadian debt, and just this is, Anne said the last question, but I think just to maybe wrap up, because that is really the bigger concern, I think, for all of us as taxpayers going forward. If we see these rates at 4, 5, 6%, we're the ones paying the tax bill on that. So if you don't mind commenting, thank you.
So I will make two comments. The first one on the Canadian debt, and also after that on the long-term interest rate. So government debt in Canada before the pandemic was 40%. The ratio of our debt on GDP was 40%. We went up to 60% in 2 years. That's a huge jump. The good news is that 40% we were the lowest in the G7 country. So the most important countries around the world. For example, the US is at 100%. At 60%, we're now still the lowest, but with Germany. Germany is also 60%. We still are in a very good position. We are 60, US at 100, Japan 250. So France is 110, Germany is 60. So we are still, like UK is much higher than us. We're still in a very good position. We still have a AAA bonding rating. So this is the best you can get. So we're still in a very good shape. Obviously, we cannot do that all the time. So we will have to be, we'll have to, I really like what the minister said. The Ontario strategy is to slow down investment, not spending, to rebalance the budget. In the context of inflation, that's exactly what government should do. So this is a great strategy. Second point is where, the interest rate will never, well, not never, but it will not go back very high for a long period of time because there's a lot of savings in the world and there's a lot of savings in Canada. In the developed economies, just like Canada, we have an aging population. A lot of people are getting older and they have a lot of assets, a lot of savings. That would keep interest rate lower, like I said, the neutral rate 2.5% for a long period of time. So we're not expecting to go back to interest rate around 10 or 12%, what we have seen in the past, because there's so much wealth, so much money, so much availability of financing in the world.
Pierre, wow. Thank you.
Thank you.
Big round of applause for Pierre.
And thank you for the great questions. I think that's what makes these sessions very interesting. You had a lot of great questions, so thank you so much.
Thank you. And Keely must have read my speaking notes. You make it so concise and data easy to understand. And that's why we wanted you to come back. This is the first time we've ever had a speaker come here 3 times. So thank you so much.
Thank you.
And we hope you come back perhaps the 4th.
Thank you. Nice to meet you. Thank you.
Okay, I'm going to just move on to the next session here. So as Pierre mentioned, digital, he came to us back in 2018 and said, how important is digital to us? And going digital is what we're focusing on, and we're pleased to share some information on what did we do in the region, based on Pierre's advice, of course. So what I'd like to do is call upon Shelbi McFarlane, the Business Development Officer for Leeds Grenville, along with Norma Banford, Golden Moment Farm from Athens, Shelley Mitchell from To Be Continued in North Grenville, and Nicole Hudson from Katarina's Coffee Shop in Prescott to go up on the stage, and Shelbi will lead us off. And there's some chairs up there. And here's just an example of some of the things that have gone on in our region. Shelbi, I'll let you take it away.
Good morning, everyone. Tough spot to be in just before lunch, but we'll make it snappy and also uplifting, I think. All right, so as we all know, small businesses across the region have been dealing with their fair share of challenges over the past 3 years. And today I'd like to share a little bit on a program that has been a cornerstone in business support across the region since the pandemic hit, and that's Digital Main Street. Is this the clicker? Yeah. Okay. I do want it, yeah. There. Digital Main Street. I hope that by sharing the details about this program, its impact, and some amazing success stories, we can head on to our networking lunch break feeling inspired and proud of what businesses in Leeds Grenville are accomplishing. Digital Main Street is an innovative program funded by the federal and provincial governments. All components of the program are offered free to qualifying businesses. In 2020, as the pandemic hit, not ready to go there yet. In 2020, as the pandemic hit, County's Economic Development worked with representatives from all 13 municipalities in pursuit of Digital Main Street funding to ensure that businesses in every municipality in Leeds Grenville would be able to access essential programming and also to ensure that the region leveraged maximum funding. There. The following is a regional breakdown of the 5 service areas across the counties. So we've got Westport, Rideau Lakes, Marrickville, Wolford, Elizabethtown, Kittley, in front of Yonge and Athens, served by the county's Economic Development Office, the municipality of North Grenville. We've got Prescott, Edwardsburg, Cardinal, and Augusta through the town of Prescott. City of Brockville is served by the downtown Brockville BIA, and Leeds and Thousand Islands and Gananoque are served by the township of the Leeds and Thousand Islands. This regional coordinated effort continues as the program continues. Each service provider receives grant money through the Digital Main Street program to hire staff and to provide support to businesses in their designated area. The staff assists local businesses in accessing Digital Main Street programs. There we all are. The flagship program is the $2,500 Digital Transformation Grant, and that's available to businesses who have a bricks and mortar storefront. After completing a digital transformation plan and undertaking some required training, successful businesses can use the $2,500 to improve their online presence by advertising, accessing consultants, or by investing in hardware. Hundreds of thousands of dollars have gone directly into Leeds Grenville businesses over the past 4 intakes of the Digital Transformation Grant. There's no denying that grant money for digital transformation is a huge draw for participation. However, I also want to take some time today to draw the attention to the Digital Service Squad program. While the grant money is only available to businesses with a brick and mortar storefront, the digital service staff are available to almost any business in Leeds Grenville, and this allows businesses to access priceless one-on-one support with local digital experts. I strongly believe that it's the personal and local service that has made the digital service program such a success. All of the staff members across the region are highly talented and care deeply about helping businesses in the region succeed. Through this program, support could include help launching or enhancing social media accounts, fine-tuning or upgrading existing websites, content creation, photography, and many other things. From my experience, most businesses value having ongoing access to someone with a wide range of digital and technical skills to help them troubleshoot any problem they might be experiencing. Another program to mention is Shop Here, and that's offered through Digital Main Street, where businesses and artists can work with a web developer to have a website created for them for free. So now that I've given you an overview of Digital Main Street, I'd like to invite up some businesses from Leeds Grenville who have seen great success through the programs. Through these testimonials, I hope you'll get a sense of just how impactful Digital Main Street programs have been across the region, regardless of location and sector. First up, I'll introduce Norma Banford of Golden Moment Farm in Athens.
I don't like being first. First of all, thanks for the opportunity to talk about the program. I wasn't unknown to digital. I knew it. I worked in the feds for enough years, but moving forward at a rate that was going to help our maple syrup business is where I got sort of stymied. So I did access both programs, the Digital Main Street and the Shop Here. It was good because my website was very outdated and very simple, and I got the expertise through the Shop Here program of getting that ready to launch into something that could either be an online order, delivery, whatever, to just updating the website itself. So that was great. But the portion, I think, that it really helped us was the strategic overview of how we could move forward in what we did in terms of digital, updating our own processes. And there was 2 main focuses. One of the things I liked about the program, I'll say, building the transformational plan was one thing, but when you start the program, you don't necessarily know what you need because you don't know what's there. And through the process and through some very excellent consulting, I was able to adapt my plan. And as long as we kept everybody informed, the plan could evolve as my knowledge grew. So we managed to get an inventory and labeling system, which I can say has improved. I just bottled 2 barrels of syrup. And every one of those little bottles has to have a label and has to be lauded. And it was very time consuming when my labeler would only do 10 labels at a time, and I'm looking at maybe 300. So I got a labeler, which, like, I would say it's cut my time by 60% in getting those labels created and on the bottles with the minimum error rate that I would have had before. The other part that was really helpful was we would go to shows. We would have people come to the farm, and it was by cash. We had no access, or we couldn't get the internet to have people tap and pay. So we talked about what would be the best system. I worked with the consultant again and figuring out what would work for us. And we were able to get, a square and get it operational. The very first time we used it was during Maple Fest at Perth last year. And we increased our sales that day, I would say, by 25%. Just having the ability for people to come up and say, oh, I'd really like to buy that bottle. Oh, you take credit? Yeah, tap and pay. So I was skeptical as to whether it would make a difference, and it definitely did. It makes a difference in the sugar shack. When people come and they want to buy and they say, oh, I didn't bring enough money. That's okay. What I've learned is that the phone is really easy to connect to Square, and my internet at home is not stable enough and it's not secure. But the phone internet, it works. So I turn on Square, and people can tap and pay. So the program itself is great. We got hardware that helped us exponentially in the business. I got excellent support from everybody with both programs. And it was probably one of the easiest grant programs I've ever accessed, where we received the most benefit. So I want to thanks for the opportunity.
Thanks, Norma. All right, next I'd like to introduce Shelley Mitchell, owner of To Be Continued Consignment Shop in Grenville.
Oh, good morning. My name is Shelley Mitchell, and I am the owner-operator of To Be Continued in Grenville. We are Grenville's family consignment shop, children's toy store, and helium balloon headquarters. I apologize if I fumble a bit. It's been a good 3 years since I've had the opportunity to public speak. To Be Continued is in its 19th year of business and has seen dramatic changes in how businesses engage with and use social media, online shopping platforms, e-marketing, and the overall importance of a business's online presence. This shift has never been more important as it has over the last 3 years, where brick and mortar shops were forced to pivot and find creative ways to stay in touch with and meet their customers' needs, all the while not being able to open their doors, dealing with customers' public health concerns, and competing with the online shopping market. I was first introduced to the Digital Main Street program in 2019, prior to the start of the pandemic. During my initial introduction, I worked with a digital squad member to receive an assessment of my digital presence and work on making improvements based on that feedback. I also applied for and received the Digital Transformation Grant. Not being able to see into the future, at that time, I had no idea how important this grant and that assessment was to be. Thanks to the initial grant, To Be Continued had already done the work with social media platforms and had a pre-existing engaged audience at our fingertips. Having a social media following, a well-established page, and a relationship with its followers, I was able to use this platform to connect with customers and set up a way for them to shop at the safety of their own homes. While retail was deemed non-essential, meeting the needs of growing children during seasons change and in upcoming special occasions such as Easter was definitely an importance to parents. To Be Continued was able to meet those needs by using its newly enhanced social media. During the midst of the pandemic, I had an opportunity to reapply for the Digital Transformation Grant, which was invaluable at the time. The pandemic was an unprecedented experience for business owners, and there was little direction or understanding of the impact this was to have. The beginning of the pandemic saw To Be Continued scrambling to finish our online store that had only just been started. This grant allowed To Be Continued to advertise the new online store and promote it. Thanks to the online store, customers were able to shop and find the items they needed more efficiently than just using social media. At that time, I was able to hire a consultant to further enhance our social media presence and purchase a second computer to meet our ever-changing technological needs. These technological advances would become so important as that first year progressed and more closures and public health measures followed. So my third experience with Digital Main Street began this past summer when I met North Grenville's Digital Service Squad member. Ronnie began working with TBC by offering to take 360 photos that could be used in our Google listing and on our website to offer customers a virtual experience of our shop. Working with Ronnie has definitely been a transforming experience. Ronnie has helped me change my website from a one-page simple website to a multi-page, interactive, interesting, and I would say an informative work of art. Ronnie speaks in terms I do not know and talks about things I will likely never understand. But, and I do say this with astonishment, I am now able to work on my website and make necessary changes on my own. Ronnie has met with me weekly to provide patient and informed assistance, and I cannot thank him and this program enough. If you own a business in North Grenville, do yourself a favor and get in touch with Ronnie. You will not be disappointed. Moving forward, these website changes will improve my SEO, allowing customers to find To Be Continued easier and improve on the success of our online store. As we all know, this pandemic is not over, nor are the ever-changing implications for businesses. So I rest easier knowing that To Be Continued's online presence is ready to take us into the future. Thank you.
Thanks, Shelley. I'm going to cry up here. You guys are doing so good. It's so inspiring. All right. Finally, I'd like to introduce Nicole Hudson, who's the owner of Katarina's Coffee Shop in Prescott. Now, in addition to the other programs that I talked about today, Nicole is one of a handful of Leeds and Grenville businesses who took advantage of a program called Future Proof that's no longer offered. Through Future Proof, Nicole was able to work with a team of highly trained students and recent grads that included a web designer, digital marketer, graphic designer, and copywriter to propel her digital presence. All right, welcome, Nicole.
Good morning, everyone. I'm Nicole Hudson, owner of Katarina's Coffee Shop in Prescott. As a small business owner, I wear a lot of hats, and that includes the digital marketing side too. Digital Main Street helped push my small business into record sales to date, and here is how. I was in a program called Future Proof, and as Shelbi mentioned, I had the privilege to work with a very skilled and talented team. And shout out to Charlie, by the way, he was part of my Future Proof digital transformation. They studied the digital part of my business and gave me different tools to work with. At the time, we had approximately 600 followers on Facebook, about 100 on Instagram, and a Google-generated website. As of today, with all their help, we currently have 2,500 followers on Facebook and Instagram, Shopify website, and online ordering. By using those social media platforms alone, we were able to reach a market that we would not necessarily have just by word of mouth. I enjoyed working with such a diverse team who were there every step of the way. Following that, I was also in the Shop Here program. I was able to build a website with a Shopify expert, and we worked together to create a base of my website, which we still use today. The program taught me how to customize and make it sustainable for me to run, which actually now pays for itself, which is a win-win for us. And lastly, we were also part of the digital grant. I chose to put my grant towards more coaching sessions, boosting different posts on social media, and a new POS machine. This resource really depends on what your business needs. Whether it is hardware for a new POS machine, coaching sessions, or even just to hire someone to help you throughout. I also wanted to highlight this table right here, which is our digital team of Prescott, Justin, Elizabeth, and the town. They guided me throughout the process and checked up on me when I needed help. I still reach out to them today as they have an abundance of knowledge when it comes to the digital space. They even host webinars online, which help small businesses like me learn while we work. I highly recommend taking a closer look at the different programs you'd like to take advantage of. Once again, it's a free resource. There's a whole new world you can tap into once you take your business digital. Thank you.
Awesome. Thank you guys so much. And it's so exciting to watch you continue to thrive and grow. And we can't wait to see what things you guys get up to next. So just before we end here, I'll tell you a little bit about what businesses can expect from Digital Main Street coming in the coming months. So there will be another intake of the Digital Transformation Grant in January, which will be available to businesses who have received funding prior to 2021. We're also excited to share that we anticipate that businesses who have already received grant money in 2021 will be able to reapply for funds in spring of 2023. Businesses can also explore grant money available through the Canadian Digital Adoption Program, which offers $2,400 in a grant for digital upgrades. Eligibility for this program is slightly different and doesn't require businesses to have a brick and mortar location. This program will be accepting applications until 2025. Businesses across Leeds Grenville are also able to attend a number of workshops put on by local digital service providers. These free workshops can be found in the county's economic development e-newsletter, which I hope you all receive. And in the meantime, I encourage businesses to reach out to their local digital service providers to see how they can continue to advance your business's digital presence and for any assistance with the grant programs that are available. So thanks so much, everyone, and I hope you have a wonderful rest of Summit.
Thank you to all of you, and Shelby's going to present you with a small token of our appreciation. What an amazing story. It is really, they wear so many hats as small business owners, and it's truly impressive. There were so many individuals that were a part of this, and as Katarina, or as Nicole mentioned, there's the Prescott squad. Perhaps those squads that are here, can you stand up and take a wave? And so people know who you are. So there's Ronnie. Shelby's over there. Or Cindy. And there we go. Okay. Is that 3? Who's hungry? You ready? All righty. Food. Today, in the spirit of snow, we've produced a turkey lunch. This has been prepared by Catered Affairs, who have sourced local foods. And if I can go to the next slide there, who's got my slide? She's hidden it under here. There we go. You got her for me. Thank you. Here's some of the places. Grains Bakery, North Grenville, Busch Garden Farms for the cheese, and Rideau Lakes, Barking Bee Company out of North Grenville, Old Stone Mill out of Rideau Lakes, Rideau Roastery, North Grenville, and Farmers Market here. On the Bend Maple Syrup Shack, and just outside, because Tara's here, we have Purdue Poultry. That is the turkey today, so from Stormont, South Dundas, Glengarry, just in your honor. So for those that are gluten, and it is gluten-free and dairy-free, the meal, for those of you that have concerns with that. Vegetarian and pescatarians, there is identified a dietary need. There's individuals of portions of lasagna for you that have been made, and help yourself to the salads and sides at the buffet table. There are 2 identical lunch setups, one going left, one going right. Form 2 lines on either side and go down the 2. That way everyone can get lunch in great time. And I'm seeing we need a couple of minutes, so we'll kind of work on that. We'll do a business card draw, I think, if there's any other business cards. Once you have finished lunch, there are busing dishes at the back. Please self-clear your plates and to the busing tables at the back. And the award winners, if we can have them back on the stage, and the nominees, if they're still here, we'd like to do some further pictures. It's also time to have a little fun. Are we ready for a little fun this afternoon? Go to the photo booth. Shelby's going to be there, and some of our team. Cindy and Carol is going to be there. Get your group picture taken. Let's have some fun. You guys haven't been together for eons, for some of you. So let's do a business card draw. Okay, Heather, help me out here. All right. And it's the ones with the yellow packets. Carolyn Rigato. Do I got that right? There we go. Isn't this lovely? You come to your first event and you get a door prize. Okay. Before you do that, you have to pick a winner too. Thank you. Stephen from Custom Blinds, let's see, Stevens Creek Shutter Group. I don't see a name on here. Are you there? Perfect. Oh, okay, we can include. There we go. Okay, we'll mix them up. Okay, I'll pick one here. Oh, Councillor Deb Wilson. You guys are hauling her in. That's it, one more. All righty, we'll keep the last one, and to the after lunch to give you incentive to stay here. And of course you want to hear me at the end of the day, right? So thank you, everyone. Enjoy the lunch, and we'll reconvene here again. We like to start and end promptly. We'll reconvene here back at 1 o'clock, and we'll have Clayton Jones with us, so from Cruise Rail. Enjoy.